Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay, good morning, folks. This is the Christian Hearts Christian Fellowship online ministry. I'm your pastor, Brother Isaac David Brigman, and today we're going to be reading out of Matthew 4:19 and the rest of it as possible. I mean, we may not can get through the whole thing, but for what we got time for, we'll go through not only Matthew 4:19, but as far as we can go about the fishers of men. So, hope you'll stay tuned and enjoy today's sermon because, as I always say, when you watch these videos and hear my audios, you are attending a church service of the Christian Hearts Christian Fellowship online ministry because my media is my church. Until I get something straightened out one day with the miracle of the Lord about having an actual building church. But anyhow, let's get into it and get it going today. Okay, folks. Well, it says here, Matthew 4:19. Jesus said to them, "Come with me, I will teach you how to bring in people instead of fish." Right then, the two brothers dropped their nets and went with him. Jesus walked on until he saw James and John, the sons of Zebedee. They were in a boat with their father, mending their nets. Jesus asked them to come with him too. Right away, they left the boat and their father and went with Jesus. Jesus went all over Galilee, teaching in the Jewish meetings or Jewish meeting place and preaching the good news about God's kingdom. He also healed every kind of disease and sickness. News about him spread all over Syria, and people with every kind of sickness or disease were brought to him. Some of them had a lot of demons in them. Others were thought to be crazy, and still others could not walk, but Jesus healed them all. Now we think to ourselves right now, folks, we think to ourselves, Jesus did heal. But during the time that he was going around doing his thing, have y'all thought about the fact that Jesus had actually taught the first sermon to those people about how to be fishers of men? There are men and women to this day who don't understand that when God and Jesus told of the story of how to become fishers of men, what they meant to say is that they basically was saying that we are fishers of men, and that when we do what God tells us to do and what Jesus tells us to do, we can cause sinners to be saints, not in the sense of the saints in the Bible, but more like born again Christians, and be able to rise up and tell the world about God and Jesus. Well, there's a lot of people in this world, my friends and family and neighbors in Christ, that just don't want to do what you say when you tell them about God and Jesus. You can say God is good, God is great, and they'll tell you how wonderful that is to talk like that. But do you understand that when you're loving God and when you're loving Jesus, a lot of times it don't come easy? And I know it sounds bad to say this, but it's about like I listen to different forms of music, yes, but I realize that you're supposed to abstain from cussing. But I will say one word from a song that kind of stuck out with me. It's, you got to pay your dues if you're gonna sing the blues, as you know it don't come easy. Now you say that sounds sad. Well, yeah, but if you want to sing the blues called Satan, and you're singing the blues in the sense of, hey, Satan is sadness, Satan is evil, Satan is meanness, that kind of blues, then you got to pay your dues. You got to follow Christ, and you got to denounce the devil if you want to sing the song called How Bad the Devil Is. So basically what I'm saying in this sense is, if we talk about devil the right way, if we talk about the devil the way that he deserves to be talked about, we have to understand that we have to go through some hardships to get to that point. And it's like they say, hold on. It's like they say, folks, when you're dealing with God like you're supposed to, and you start dealing with Satan like you're supposed to, it comes out in the end to be that you're going to have an easy time with God and a hard time with Satan. Now you say, no, it's hard working for God. Yes, it is. But what I'm saying is, it's harder messing with the devil than it is to mess with God. And we know, folks, that we are not stupid to sit there and say, God told us what to do, and yet we don't believe that. We say that stuff at times because we want the world to believe what we say. Now you might say, so Pastor Isaac, or Pastor Brigman, or Pastor David, or Pastor Isaac David Brigman, however you want to call me. But like you might say, well, Brother Isaac, are you telling me that it's hard to work for God? Well, yes and no. I mean, it's easy to work for God in the sense of your life is a whole lot better once you get with God and Jesus. But if you run this world in the sense of, well, God, just work with God and you have no problems. No. But if you work with God, you will see some happiness. Yes. But what I'm saying is, we see God and we see Jesus. We see the way they act and the way they work, and we say to ourselves, if God and Jesus really work that way, why am I not seeing it? Why am I not feeling it? You don't feel it because you don't know it. We're living in a day and age right now where it's easy to work for God in the sense of our life is better off with God, but it's not easy in the sense of we got to fight with the devil every time we turn around. And you know it as much as I do. How do we live in a world today where we can't even wake up and do something for God without the devil poking his old ugly head out of the hole he's in, trying to tell us how bad we are? And I tell you, folks, I've seen too much stuff going on in this world that hurts my feelings, make me want to cry and say, oh Lord, what's going on with this world? We have 2 or 3 days already in a certain time span already had tragedies happen because the devil reared his ugly head, spoke out of turn or both, and didn't even supposed to. Now you might think I'm stupid for what I'm saying or dumb, but you know what? I've heard your criticisms about me, and I've heard how you don't like me preaching. Guess what? Well, I'm going to do it whether you like it or not. If somebody came in here and told me I'm going to jail if they yank me out of this here office church of mine and told me you're going to jail for preaching the good word, I say, you know what? This is just John the Baptist all over again. That's exactly what happened. Think about it. He got jailed for doing the same exact thing, speaking when God told him to speak. I'm just carrying on the same attitude as John the Baptist. I don't see what's wrong with that. It says that John was called by God to speak. It says that in the terms the Bible puts it in. Yet we're going to sit there and act like, oh, well, if a human being is called by God to speak, just like he did John, oh, they're wrong because they don't have all these great things going on in their life to make them You know what? If God ordains you to do something, what is the problem with sitting there and not doing it? The problem with that is because God told you to get up out your seat and do what he said. And you know what? Media has gotten to the point now where we cannot use it unless we're doing something dirty. But yet, there is a ray of hope that says that ain't always true. That we can use media to get to the people that need to be gotten to and need to be treated like people. I've lived in a world where it seemed like every time you turn around, people are getting in trouble over something ridiculous that they could have avoided if they'd have just listened to God when God was talking. And see, everybody gets this attitude like, I'm wrong because I'm speaking. That's about like saying, old Elvis Presley was bad for what he done, but I seen worse today. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some good and bad out of old Elvis. But I'm saying there's good and bad out of everybody. The thing is, I seen worse. That's about like trying to criticize me being a minister, yet there's people out there doing worse than me. Come on. There's people out there that get called, get the wrong calling, get the calling of Satan, to be a preacher of Satan. Oh, you know what? Even the old devil gets jealous. He's got his own preachers, he's got his own church, he's got his own Bibles, he's probably got his own Sunday schools. I don't know. He may have Sunday worships about how evil God is and how evil Jesus is. Isn't that ridiculous? To think we live in a world where everything that God ever talked about in a church, some dude to come along and say the anti-version of it in an anti-Jesus church or an anti-God church, which is basically Satan's church. Come on now. I'm no dummy, but I remember times in life when things were simple. You had people going to church, believing in God and Jesus. Now we got people like the Amish loving the Lord more than the actual Christians who have electricity do. I say, folks, wouldn't it be nice to have a new movement where we have people that are part-time Amish, basically where you live for maybe a weekend or so without power, and then after that time period's up, go back to power. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. I wouldn't suggest trying it right away until you get your gut straightened out, as they say, get the feeling to do it, because you jump into something like that, you're just going to end up saying, wow, I wish I hadn't have done that because here I am feeling bad about it. I always say test the waters first. See if you can go a day without it. If you can go a day, maybe. But if you can't go a day, how you going to last the whole weekend? That's about like saying, if you can't stick with God for a whole day, how you going to spend a lifetime with God? I mean, you got to be able to be Johnny on the spot and say, devil, I rebuke you in the name of God. And when someone cusses in front of you, oh, don't even hold back. Just say, I rebuke you in the name of God. Devil, get out of that man's mouth. Quit making him cuss. Quit making him sin verbally, because if he can sin verbally, he can sin in other ways too. And that's ridiculous. We live in a world where we can't even talk about God and Jesus without somebody getting offended by it. Someone getting offended by it. And there's always going to be someone offended. I can't tell you how many times my early days in the ministry, and I do understand that, that could have been, these things I'm speaking of could have been yesterday, day before yesterday, or years into the past, or whatever. But as long as I've been doing this, regardless of what the time period was, it was part of my past where I've had criticisms that made me feel like you're more worried about criticizing me than you are what I'm trying to say. If you'd worry more about what I'm trying to say than the criticism you're trying to give me, you'd see something. But you're too busy criticizing me, telling me how bad I am, how wrong I am, without even realizing what I was about. Now, if you'd stop all that, start worrying about what I'm really about, then you'll get somewhere. But you're too busy sitting there talking about me as though I didn't do it right or wrong, and it was just wrong, period. Not right or wrong, but just wrong, period. And you think about it. When you criticize the speaker instead of the message, oh my goodness. Did the man give the message the way God told him to? Okay, that's the issue that should be addressed. But we're too busy yakking up a storm, telling the world how bad God is, how bad Jesus is, till we're not even worried about the fact that, wait a minute, Who made the world? God. Who did he give us as a gift for our sins? And last time I checked, it was Jesus Christ, his son. So where does it say anywhere in this world that we're supposed to sit there and denounce God and Jesus? And while we're denouncing them, we should also denounce the speakers who speak of God and Jesus. I'm going to tell you about God and Jesus, and yet you're going to sit there and talk bad about me? I don't think so. You're going to sit there and listen. Then when I get through, if you don't like what I'm saying, you can go on your merry way and do what you want to about it. But please, if you love people as much as you say you do, don't cuss them out. Don't bless them out. What's the use in that? Don't do no good, just get you looking like a fool when you're sitting there talking about the things that you don't know about, things you don't care about, things you don't want to know about and don't want to care about. We're sitting there talking every day and night about how fun it is to do such and such, but yet we left God out. We threw God out like the baby in the bathwater story. The bathwater went out the window because of what it was. What used to be when the babies took a bath, human beings had to wash the babies in homemade bathtubs for babies. So you had to throw the bathwater out the window to do so. I suppose that's how that saying got started. I really don't know. But I'm trying to figure this out. Throw the baby out with the bathwater makes me think about that kind of a life. And if that's what happened, that meant that we didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We threw the Lord out. What's up with that? Why? Because we're too busy sitting there talking about how if we listen, didn't he just say, when I read to you, didn't God tell you through my message that he was saying he would make you fishers of men? That means put aside your problems and your griefs and your strife and look at God as God is your father and Jesus is your brother. When you look at it like that, that means that you're supposed to love God and Jesus. You're supposed to be able to see them as the teachers and preachers that teach you how to be fishers of men. And they're supposed to teach you how to bring in with every message you give. You're supposed to be able to know how to do this. Say, I'm God, I'm Jesus, and I'm going to teach y'all how to be fishers of men. That's what you're supposed to see it as. Not that I am God, but that God himself is God. And that Jesus himself is Jesus. Not that I am. But if I was, that's how I would say it. But I'm saying God and Jesus tell you they're teachers and preachers of the good word to teach you how to be fishers of men. But we can't sit there and see that because we're too busy criticizing some guy for being a minister of the word. Well, as long as he's not going out there breaking any laws, if he's trying to get to you through gospel, music, and preaching, what's the point of criticizing? What's the point of making a fuss? I mean, look at Paul and Silas. Look at John the Baptist. Look at Moses. I mean, look at Job. What did they got in common? That God called them to do a great work in his name. So you would think if God and Jesus called these men to do this stuff, why are we sitting there saying they shouldn't talk about God and Jesus because they didn't go through so much ceremonies and rituals and all? Yes, they did. But their ceremonies, rituals, and rites, and whatever you want to call it, was God looking them dead in the eyeballs and said, go. You got ministers and preachers and pastors deep in your heart. Get them out and show them to the world. Show that preacher that's in your heart. Show that minister that's in your heart. Show that pastor that's in your heart. Show him to the world. Let the world know about me. And I say me as in God and Jesus, not me as in Isaac David Brigham. No. You want to know about God or need to know about God or both. And yet, how can you get it if somebody don't tell it to you? And also, when God calls you to do it, do it. Don't sit there and just not even do nothing. And I don't understand where y'all got this thing called, if a person said something you like about God today, then if they don't do what you want them to do tomorrow, whoop, they're wrong. God don't change due to the situation between you and someone else. That don't mean that old John, Larry, Paul Smith, if he's got a problem with Bob Dulahoochee, that don't mean that if them two guys had a fight, that you said something good about God yesterday and I liked it. Now today I got a problem with you. Now I don't